our workshop, and it's nice, our pleasure to meet you again at our conference, our workshop, because I see that many of you participated in our workshop in previous years as well. So it is a good opportunity, even in remote mode, to communicate, to share our findings over last year and even maybe earlier. But in any way, I'd like to start this with very interesting statistics that was produced by ICTERI system, and with our education some specification for regards our workshop. First of all, as you see, submissions that we got this year were 39, but accepted only 1/3, at least. It looks like 13, but you can see from in red text that today, that year, the ICTERI conference has 7 workshops, and general number of accepted papers is 53, and 1/4 belongs to our workshop. It is a great success because, to tell the truth, it is the biggest workshop from point of view of accepted papers. I mean our workshop, 3L-Person. And you see that accepted rate is 0.33. So each 1/3 paper was accepted. But you can compare. In general conference mainstream, only 1 from 6 paper were accepted. General number of reviews, you see that it is more than 100 reviews. It relates only to our workshop, our program committee of our workshop. I will demonstrate some more specific data a little bit later, just now. But what I'd like to mention, that today, this year, we had not simply one stage of reviewing, I mean, level of our workshop program committee. After us, we selected 18 plus 3 papers, but the second stage was made by organizers at the general conference, and we lost more 8 papers. But comparing to other workshops, as you see, it is not so significant. For example, many of our colleagues have 5, 6, 7 papers in general. Finally, number of reviews per submission. You see that the biggest part of our reviews, of our papers, was 24 papers from 39 had 3 reviewers, and only 1 paper had 1 reviewers, and 1 paper had 4 reviewers. So it was very hard and very heavy, very strong reviewing process. By country, it is a very interesting distribution this year, because you see the bigger number of countries participated, at least at the first stage of this year workshop. And the number of our program committee, number of paper members, you see this, of course, the biggest part representation is Ukraine, but pardon, I expect that next year, in the future, next year and next years, maybe it will be more strong the requirements from the organizers of the general ICTERI conference to have more heavy, more extended participation and representation from different countries. Oh, pardon, 1 second. Number of submissions by country. You see the biggest part of general submissions belongs to Ukrainian participants. You see Poland 0.5, Spain 0.3. It means that it was formally distributed. Each paper was divided to calculate this number on number of authors, co-authors of each paper. That's why, for example, in Poland, 2 co-authors, one from Poland, one from Ukraine. That's why number is 0.5. Number of submission and acceptance rate by country. Acceptance rates, I mentioned that we have 0.33. And you see that, unfortunately for us as organizers, only participants from Poland and Ukraine are left in accepted papers. Interesting information, how long and how intensive was submissions of process. You can see that general period from March to May, we obtain from time to time 1, 3, 4, even 11 papers per day. So the whole period we received submissions. Number of authors per submission. 11 papers were with only from one author. And the biggest number of authors, 4 and 5, we have 8 papers. It is interesting that it is general tendency to have more and more number of authors per paper. This is interesting analytical data produced by ICTERI system in relation to scientific criteria, key phrases. You see that the number of the greatest number of professional term is distance learning, and according to classification of ICTERI system, this key phrase had 1,000 points. In relation to it, higher education had significantly less number of papers that mention this term, and less. To understand this more more particular, I proposed you to look at this, the terms, key phrases that have the biggest part of meeting in across the whole number of submissions. The first 21 terms. Distance learning, you see that rate of acceptance rate was 30% or 0.3. It means that only 30% of general accepted papers contained distance learning term. But what is interesting, as for me at least, digital competence had 100%. So, in other words, each paper that contained and related to digital competence was accepted, has been accepted. So it is interesting information for the future, because you can compare, for example, augmented reality, virtual reality, quite popular term today. But in contrast with augmented reality technology, they have higher level of acceptance, highest level of rate of acceptance. That is information for future. In other words, from my opinion, it is necessary to prepare better presentation of your scientific works, and not only simply mention some popular term, but they have been good, considered and good argumented to be included in paper. Not simply, okay, it is popular term that we install this term, key phrase, into our keywords. It is not a criteria to select paper. It is not a guarantee. Guarantee to be accepted from point of view of paper is to have new real data, first of all, and related to information communication technology, absolutely right. But regards to our work today, we have 3 sessions, and first one is started just now. We have 4 presentations over it, and after that we will have a break on half an hour, and after that we will have a second session. You see the number of the session, our workshop, of course, and link to join. Even if you lost or stop your computer, you can meet this link in the next program part. But what I'd like to pay attention, presentation usually is between 15 and 20 minutes long. But you have a window 25 minutes between presentations. That is why we have, and it is engaged to have much more questions and answers. But questions, please write in chat. Because it will be more easy for organizers and to control the general situation, to control the time sharing. The second session will start at 11 o'clock, and we'll have 5 presentations. After that, we'll have lunch break for 1 hour till 2 p.m. And finally, we have the very last session 4 presentations and general discussion at the end. After our workshop session, third session, it will be ICTERI closing and farewell session. And finally, it will be the finish of this year ICTERI conference. Thank you very much for this presentation, for your attention, and I hope we'll have good opportunity to share our data, share our opinion, and share our findings. If you have any question, please you can ask Svetlana or me. We'll try to answer this in regards to general idea, general conference, a general organization question. Please ask if some question here. No, okay. So let's start our first session, and first presentation will be made by our main chair of organizing committee and program committee, Svetlana Litvinova, with colleagues. Please start, take your floor, and we'll start. 25 minutes for in general, and up to 20 minutes, preferably maybe 15 minutes for particular presentation. Okay.
Dear colleagues, we are glad to introduce our work, Distance Learning in Primary School during the COVID-19 pandemic, results of the Smart Kids experiment. During 2020, throughout the prolonged quarantine caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, primary school teachers had significant difficulties in organizing distance communication with students. Firstly, they did not have sufficient skills to apply the distance learning form, DLF. It was a shock for them. And secondly, despite the fact that students of the 21st century are aborigines of digital technologies, they have not been taught to study by means of distance learning. In recent years, the systematic introduction of DLF in the educational practice of general secondary education institutions has not been observed. Educational policies did not encourage general secondary education institutions to introduce distance learning technologies. But in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, DLF has acquired a new meaning in general secondary education institutions and needs additional attention and new research by scientists. The issue of teaching primary school students is a separate item, as the organizational and psychological and pedagogical aspects of teaching primary school students by applying DLF are not fully explored. In addition, during the weakening of quarantine measures period, it was decided that primary school students should study full-time in the classroom in most regions of Ukraine. However, this situation does not solve the problem of organizing DLF for primary school students, and postponing the problem only deepens it. In the period of 2017 to 2020, Ukraine witnessed the implementation of the project Smart Kids Technology of Teaching Primary School Students. The order of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, dated from 30th of August 2017, the number is 1234, which is based on the method of using electronic educational resources and virtual teacher's office that can fully ensure the effective implementation of DLF in primary school. Let us consider the model of DLF organization in primary school using electronic educational resources and a virtual teacher's office. It's shown in the figure in the slide. The introduction of distance learning in primary school is based on the availability of electronic educational resources, EER, for grades 1 to 4 in Ukrainian language and mathematics of the Smart Kids company. Currently, the number of such resources is more than 52 units. Teachers and students download electronic educational resources to their gadgets one time at the beginning of the school year. The use of such resources does not require constant access to the internet. Distance form of learning, based on the use of EER, includes three main components: the organization of training, conducting online lessons, explaining new material or practicing skills by students, and monitoring the quality of independent performance of tasks by students. We will further detail in all the components. The main organizational components of distance learning in primary school include the presence of electronic mailboxes of participants in the educational process, means of video telephony or conferencing, electronic educational resources, electronic calendar, access to the internet. All participants in the educational process must be provided with the access to the internet, students at home and teachers both at home and in the institution. For online communication, teachers and students need to have the technical means, such as laptops, personal computers, or tablets. The implementation of online educational communication requires that the teacher be competent to use conference or video telephony, namely Zoom, Skype, Google Meet, Teams, etc. At the beginning of the school year, the teacher needs to form a database of email boxes of students to generate invitations to online classes. Organizational aspects include creating a schedule of online meetings with the students. According to the requirements of the sanitary regulations for schools, online class should last no more than 10 minutes for the first graders and no more than 15 minutes for the second and fourth graders. Therefore, a teacher should consider the following organizational aspects of the online classes: roll call of the students, explanation of a new material, consolidation of the studied material. The quality of the tasks performed by the students was assessed by 3 indicators. The task was performed correctly, the task was performed with 1 error, and the task was performed with more than 1 error. The pupil had the opportunity to redo the task. The motivation was the number of correctly performed tasks, as shown in this figure. The teacher was able to monitor the quality of the completed tasks in the virtual teacher's office and, if necessary, to assign an additional task to practice the necessary skills. While monitoring the students' academic achievements, the teacher was able to shape an individual trajectory of the student's development and provide for the development and consolidation of those tasks that the student encountered difficulties to complete. At the time of the large-scale COVID-19 pandemic, 94 primary school teachers took part in the experiment to introduce distance education in 12 regions of Ukraine. Namely, the first grade, 27.7%, second grade, 22.3%, third grade, 17%, fourth grade, 32%. A total of 2,454 students took part in the experiment. The distribution of students by grades can be seen in the figure in this slide. In the process of organizing the education of primary school students by distance learning, teachers used the following technical means. School and home computers. They also identified a mobile phone as an additional means of instant communication. An important aspect of any form of student learning is assessment. Under the normative documents of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, assessment in grades 1 and 2 is not recommended, but teachers, participants of the project, carried out constant monitoring of students' academic achievements through a virtual teacher's office. Moreover, they used additional services such as Kahoot, Viber, Microsoft Forms, Learning apps, and Google Forms to evaluate students in grades 3 and 4. As teachers were provided with electronic educational resources, it was important to find out the frequency of using EER during distance learning. You can see that in the figure in this slide. Analyzing the results, we found out that 90.3% of teachers used EER for teaching both continuously and periodically, and only 10% failed to apply EER due to problems with the internet. During the pandemic, 64.9% used EER to explain new material, 50% to test the learning material, 74.5% gave students additional tasks to practice skills. To ensure online communication with students, almost 28% of teachers used additional services, such as Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, and Skype. The authors also studied the role of EER in teaching primary school students. According to teachers, these were resources for practicing skills, 76.6%, for explaining new material, 64.9%, for monitoring the quality of completed tasks, 50%. 28.8% said that they managed to establish online learning communication and asked the students to speak in front of the class while performing EER. Teachers who, in the extreme conditions of transition to distance learning, took the opportunity to use EER to ensure the continuity of student learning, rated the quality of their own work as quite high, which you can see in the figure in this slide. To evaluate the results of the experiment, it was also important to summarize the teachers' opinions on the need of the use EER in primary school in the pandemic event. Thus, 66% of teachers estimated the need for such resources for primary school at 10 points, 7.4% at 9 points, 16% at 8 points, and 6.4% at 7 points. On average, teachers rated the importance of EER at 8.5 out of 10 points, which is an important indicator in the implementation of smart kids technology in educational practice, being an effective means of teaching primary school students. During the discussion of the situation with COVID-19 and the transition to distance learning, teachers outlined 3 main problems that hindered the effective use of smart kids' electronic educational resources. They are as follows. 27% of teachers acknowledged significant problems with the use of the internet. They noted unexpected disconnections and disruptions during online classes with students. 24% of teachers identified the problem of providing computers to students at some teachers. The provision of computer equipment has become prohibitively expensive for low-income families. 20% of teachers acknowledged the lack of government assistance in providing EER to all students in the classroom. Teachers raised the common problem: limited access to students' computers during complete isolation due to parents' online work. At the moment, the primary school system is not only in the process of completing the reform, but also in the process of benchmarking, finding a reference, cost-effective solution to effectively implement distance learning, adopting best practices, and implementing best pedagogical practices that will lay the foundations for primary school to provide quality education. Since EER can be used both in full-time and distance learning, the global experiment on the introduction of distance learning in the pedagogical practice of primary school teachers within the framework of the Smart Kids technology of teaching primary school students experiment is a positive example of providing continuous and high-quality student learning. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Svetlana and Natalia, for your interesting presentation. And we'll start just from the most popular professional key phrase, distance learning. So it is just in the stream of the general conference ICTERI. And please, anybody can ask questions, but once again, preferably in written form. Just for, please, don't hesitate for this and write. Just in chat, for this moment, we have 3 questions. Svetlana or Natalia, do you have read these questions and are you ready to answer them?
Yes, ready question, but we answer.
Okay.
First question, please.
First question, according to the recommendations, the remote hour of work is 15 minutes for grades 2 up to 4. But according to experience of previous year, it was 30-40 minutes last year for 1 hour for 1 lesson. The question is 15 minutes, according to today's recommendations, enough to organize normal lesson?
Yes, enough. In 15 minutes, a student complete up to 10 tasks.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question, Smart Kids, your program, your project, involves intellectual active participants. Could be your results extended to other pupils and teachers in general? I mean the whole number of schools across nation.
Yeah, yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Do you have some confirmed data? Or it is experience from communication with teachers?
Second question, yes?
Yes, second question.
Mhm.
Do you have some confirmation from data, particular data, or it is your answer is based on real communication with other teachers?
It's real communication with other teachers.
Okay.
Mhm.
The next question from Oksana Melnik is, your research is connected with primary school. Are you going to extend the experiment, your experiment, to middle and high school?
No, only in secondary school. Primary.
Okay. In principle, it is understandable that your question is quite limited from different point of view. Okay. Thank you very much for the previous answer. And we have the next question. It is a recommendation. The next speaker would like to share the screen and present our slides. It is a question for you and for me, mostly for you as organizers. So we don't have any specific more questions. My proposal is for participants and listeners, if you have another question, please contact with authors in written form, just in chat, or you have via electronic papers, electronic mails communication, because we have and you have these contacts from papers that will be published according to my data in nearest maybe 1-2 weeks, because the volume is prepared, as I know, and the question will be only if all presenters, all papers would be presented across this workshop and conference. So it will be easy just to publish this volume of papers. But you understand that if some, according to the rules of ICTERI rules, if some papers would be not presented, it should be excluded. And after that, it takes another great job to reformat the general volume. So technically, it is ready, but we'll see what will be in real life. Thank you very much again, author of the first presentation. So the next presentation that we'll have, are you ready, our colleagues? The next question was from Maria Gladun.
Yes,
Svetlana? Svetlana, do you share screen? Okay, good.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Do you hear me and see our presentation?
Yes, he and she.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for us to present the results of our research in this workshop. Let me present our research, the relevance of training primary school teachers, computational thinking. The authors are Natalia Morze, Olga Barna, and Maria Boyko. Our presentation will be about some challenges. Computational thinking is a component of digital literacy, interdisciplinary approach, computational thinking in primary school, description of the components, our research, and presentation of digital library as a component of platform for educators to support informal education. So during the crisis caused by COVID-19, the low level of digital skills of citizens and the lack of wide access to the free use of digital technologies further exacerbate inequality in society. According to the experts of the World Economic Forum in Davos, the report on the future of work in the first of top 10 skills is dominated by problem-solving skills like analytical thinking and innovation, solving complex problems, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality, logical argumentation, problem solving, and idea formation. Therefore, it's important to develop basic coding and digital literacy skills, the ability to solve problems and make decisions based on planning and analysis of situations, which is the basis of computational thinking. So our research question are what are the prerequisites and for the introduction of computational thinking in the educational process of primary school, and why is computational thinking important in primary school? Because we know that computational thinking helps build skills that all levels of learner need, including its confidence in dealing with complexity, also with difficult problems, and ability to deal with open-ended problems. And also this issue is insufficiently studied in Ukraine. Digital literacy is defined as a combination of ICT skills, media literacy, information literacy, and computational thinking. Various definitions were used to explain the concept of computational thinking. There you can see one of them. Computational thinking is a component of human thinking, which provides its activities in solving problems of everyday life, and its importance is constantly growing. Components of computational thinking also have shown on this slide. Computational thinking is a fundamental skill of everyone, not just for computer scientists. It can be used to support problem solving in all disciplines, including the humanities, mathematics, and science. This indicates the importance of integrating computational ideas into other disciplines. In Ukraine, computational thinking as a separate subject is not studied in primary school, and the development of relevant skills is built through the interdisciplinary approach and integration. Computational thinking in primary school is presented by such activity like solve problems and design system, create and use different levels of abstraction, think with algorithm, understand the implication of scale, not only for reasons of efficiency, but also for economic and social issue. This is one of the steps to confirm the validity of our study. In our research, we analyzed the relationship of components of computational thinking with the key competence of new Ukrainian school. For each key competence, the content and components of computational thinking were described in this table. This is their part of it. Also, there are description of the components of computational thinking, skills, abilities, and requirements for the students. And one more analysis was made about components of computational thinking. In table, we picked up about description of the components of computational thinking in different fields of education. This is about integration. During our research, we interviewed more than 60 respondents who participated in the education of school children in new Ukrainian school programs. Most respondents have a false impression of the essence of the concept of computational thinking, namely as a method of forming students' computing skills. There you can see the choice of respondents to solve real problems with the students during the lessons. And you can see that teachers picked computer science. The most teachers pick this. Also, it's mathematics. I explore the world, Ukrainian language and technology, and design also include some tasks with computational thinking. The results of the teacher's survey are extrapolated to the formation of students' end-to-end skills, some of which are components of computational thinking. The evaluation took place in 2019 as a part of comprehensive study of the effectiveness of new Ukrainian school implementation. And according to the results of the study of skills of primary school students, the lowest results were found in the development of critical and systematic thinking skills. 42% of students have lower and medium level, and only 7% have high level. We analyzed the syllabi of academic disciplines and educational programs in specialty primary education of 5 universities that are in the top 10 among pedagogical universities of Ukraine on the corresponding sites. None of the programs involves the study of computational thinking as a separate subject. In the syllabus of courses in academic methods of teaching mathematics, computer science, and other disciplines in primary schools, there are no topics that directly addressed the issues of computational thinking or its components. And fragmentally, the syllabi of the courses provide for the formation of the future teacher skills and the formation of compulsory learning outcomes in accordance to the current standard of primary education and the concept of the new Ukrainian school. Therefore, the formal components of teacher training for the formation of computational thinking in students is incomplete. There are also no professional communities and specialized sites on computational thinking in the Ukrainian segment of the internet. In this regards, there is a need to create a platform for educators to support informal education on computational thinking. Components of such platform can be, for example, a digital library. And this library can include these components and these elements like these sites with information, general information about computational thinking, resources for teachers with ready-made developments, e-resources with exercises, resources for creating your own exercises with computational thinking tasks, integrated coding environments, and also it can be robotics and curiosity. The analysis of the survey showed teacher misunderstanding of the concept of computational thinking, their unwillingness to form computational thinking in students, and interest in learning about approaches that could help with the implementation of computational thinking, in willingness to use special digital resources. In particular, teachers request learning outcomes of students according to the concept of new Ukrainian school, educational university programs and resources to support non-formal and informal education allows to build a model of the concept of development of computational thinking in primary school. Practical experience with the application of our solutions is preparation of materials for testing, in which computational thinking is included in the variable component of the curriculum. Program computational thinking and exercises have been prepared with this purpose. To implement this concept, you need to provide such following steps, like comprehensive integration, systematic rollout, consolidated understanding, and support policy, of course. Our prospect for future research include research and description of specialized digital resources for the formation of computational thinking students, preparation of training programs for a teacher, and development of a database of tasks with computational thinking, and now we are working on it. Thank you, dear colleagues, for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It is very actual on the stream of general tendency worldwide regards proficiency and competencies. I don't like this term, but it is strongly European, not American, and worldwide not so popular. But nevertheless, we mean that we mean in this behind this term. So it is very interesting to get such information, and personally for me, it is I agree with you that it is very, very important for every child, for every proficiency, every vocation. But we'll wait more questions for you, but I have three for you. First of all, do you have particular data concern difference in CTs in basic and high school, with correction to age, of course? And the second part of the same question, at least in relation to the composition and integration abilities. You mentioned and demonstrated these tables, but without differentiation between these schools. Please.
Thank you very much for your question. It's really important for us to understand what fields we should also explore and research. Unfortunately, we have made research, and our questionnaire was for primary school teachers, and for now we can't see this difference with the primary school and high school and secondary school, because we understand the importance to formation computational thinking skills from very beginning, from early childhood, and our research was based on questionnaires that took place in primary school. But this question for our further research. And also the second question about difference in computational thinking between tech and humanitarian schools classes. And in our article, we didn't do such such investigation, I think, but our questionnaire can show these results, and it's also very important for us to understand this difference. And thank you also for giving us such question for further research. It's very interesting, will be, I think.
Thank you for your answer, but because we don't have another questions, could I comment and
Yes.
some recommendation to you? Why I ask you these questions particular? First of all, we know that abstract thinking is developing extremely quick in high school. After age 13, 14, not earlier. It shouldn't be illusion to measure abstract thinking in primary school. It's impossible. But it is interesting from point of view the second question, because according to our data, our research provided in particularly in Obolon school, for example, it is close for you, for your institution, university. We compared, it was very surprised for me, school number 20. Its specialization is linguistics, with some interesting, it was at least 10 years ago, with some additional pressure in mathematics. But when we compare this school 20 with school number 157, mathematical physical orientation proficiency, we didn't see significant difference in general intellect, in abstract thinking. It was surprised for me, but they were quite similar. That's why I asked you the second question, because
Yes,
it was preliminary experiment. It was not extended later, but it is very interesting.
Yeah, it's true. It's very interesting because now when we are started to prepare different tasks and exercises for develop computational thinking, we are trying not only to pay attention on computer science in primary schools like teacher picked this, or mathematics, but we are trying to prepare some exercises, for example, pattern recognition in the native language or in English, and primary school pupils learn these subjects, or for example try to do some abstraction on subject when they study I Explore the World, for example. So there is really a huge field to explore with different approach in interdisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and so on. So this competence of computational thinking we try to use in different subjects, but it's really interesting to explore different schools with maybe different schools that choose a different subject, I mean number of hours in primary school. So thank you very much for your thoughts, and it's very important for our research and for our conclusion also.
One short note, and once again, in continuation of your answer and my question and your answer, just now, up to this time, as I know, and I try to popularize this data among teachers, but without significant success, unfortunately. Succession of the human development is very significant, but at preschool age, it is known that firstly the child abilities of child are developed: hearing, music, after that languages, 2-4 years, and after that mathematics for 6 years, preschool period. And what was especially interesting from point of view of neurology, neurophysiology, that all these abilities are developed just on the same axons, just on the same melanization of axons, of course. So that's why maybe children who developed very extremely language abilities in very early age and tried and had opportunity to develop mathematics abilities, they were more successful It is my opinion, not as a scientist maybe, but researcher. That's why I propose you to pay much more attention in this relation, especially because just now it is discussed the question to create new institute under umbrella of Academy of Pedagogical Educational Sciences regards preschool and early child age development. But it is my opinion. It is not strong confirmed result. So we don't have, unfortunately. Oh, okay, Natalia Viktorovna, you have a question or comments?
No, I would like to add some words. First of all, I agree. I agree with you, with your opinion. That is why we did this research. And now we have created a syllabus how to teach children from primary school the subject as the computer thinking, the computational thinking. It's very interesting because we found out a lot of interesting experience from Singapore education, from European education, how they created this competence, computation thinking competence. And thank you very much for your questions and for your suggestion. We will think about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very interesting, as for me at least, communication and discussion in regards to this topic. But we have to go further. Please, next presentation will be made by Oksana Ovcharuk. Oksana, please take your floor. We'll
Thank you
hear
very
you.
much. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you. I would like to share my screen. Do you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not
I don't
yet.
see. I see you, but
yeah, you will
your
see now
screen
my...
is appearing. Yes, okay, good.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm glad to see you again at the conference, and thank you for the opportunity to present the study, which was conducted by the Comparative Studies Department for Information and Education Innovations in the Institute of Information Technologies and Learning Tools. The topic is the self-assessment tool of the level of digital competence of Ukrainian teachers in the context of lifelong learning, the results of online survey. Let me introduce the structure of the presentation. This is the purpose of the survey, the methods used, questions about the teacher's digital competence will be revealed, research results, conclusions and recommendations, and the future plans. Let's go to the purpose of the survey. All you know and state that an important role in clarifying the state of teachers' digital competence is played today by the need of distance learners, of using different kinds of online digital tools, and this situation took place last year during the pandemic situation, which is now around the world and as well as in Ukraine. And in order to clarify the digital competence of teachers in Ukraine, our department conducted the all-Ukrainian study, all-Ukrainian survey in January 2021, and we identified the following tasks for this study. We would like to determine the degree of readiness of teachers, how they use online tools during quarantine time. we also would like to compare the results of 2021 survey and with the previous year survey in 2020. We also would like to determine the level of digital competence of teachers through self-assessment tools that we proposed, which is based on the digital competency framework. And we also will provide the recommendations to stakeholders according to the situation based on the assessment during the situation during the current time. We used different kinds of methods. So the systematic approach to information retrieval, data gathering, computational methods, analysis of the information. And I would like to stress again that our questionnaire was fully based on the European documents, European approaches, such as digital competency framework for citizens and digital competency framework for teachers. We also identified and adopted from the digital competency framework for citizens the levels and areas of competence, of digital competence. In the slide, you can see three levels: basic user, independent user, and professional user. And we took also 5 areas of these competences proposed by the European framework: information and digital literacy, communication and collaboration, digital content creation, security, and problem solving. I would like also to pass to the main results, but before this, I would like to tell about the respondents' profile. On the slide, you can see the regions presented in the survey. So we covered all Ukraine, and you can see the list of the regions and the total number of participants which took place into the survey: 1,463 people, 3 main age categories and types of institutions: secondary schools, lyceums, educational complex, and gymnasium. So I will go to the main result, and if we take this first area, information and digital literacy, when asked about the ability to search information, you can see on the slide that 3.9% of respondents said that they can do search of information in the internet using search engine that corresponds to the basic level of user. 44% of respondents said that they can use different search engines to find information. That corresponds to the independent level of user. And 21% of 0.5% of respondents said that they can use advanced search strategies to find reliable information in the internet. For example, using web channels, that corresponds to the level of professional user. The next question was grouped around the area communication and cooperation. And on the question on the ability to communicate using various means of communication, 21.8% of respondents said that they can communicate with other users via Skype, chat, voice messages. That corresponds to the basic level of user. 11.5% can use advanced features of several means of communication. For example, file sharing, Skype, which corresponds to the level of independent user. And 66.7% of respondents said that can actively use a wide range of means: email, chat, SMS, instant messaging, blogs, microblogs. They can create websites. So it corresponds to the professional level of user. It is a good result. In the area in the field of digital content creation, when asked about the ability to create multimedia content in different formats, using various types of digital tools and environments. 55.6% of respondents said that they can create simple digital context, so text, tables that corresponds to the basic level of user. 38% of respondents said they can create complex digital format in various formats, and they use different tools to create web pages, blogs that corresponds to the level of independent user, and only 6.3% of respondents said that they can produce complex multimedia content in different formats using a variety of digital tools and environments. That corresponds to the professional level of user. In the area of safety, when asked about the ability to protect the system or devices or programs, 54.7% of respondents said that can take basic steps to protect their devices. That corresponds to the basic level of user. 32.5% respondents stated that can install security programs on devices and use them. That corresponds to the independent level of user, and only 12.8% of respondents said that they can often check the security configurations and systems of devices, use regularly access to the internet to do this. That corresponds to the professional level of users. And the next area was the problem solving. And in this area, when the problem, we asked about how they solve problems that arise when using digital technology. 56.5% of respondents said that they can find support when a technical problem occurs, or when a new program is used, they meet some problems. That corresponds to the basic level of users. 37.3% of respondents said that can solve most of the problems that most often arise using digital technologies, which corresponds to the independent user, and only 6.2% respondents said that can solve almost all the problems that arise when using digital technologies. This corresponds to the professional level. When asked, it was very interesting to ask them how they solve and how they choose the appropriate digital tool to solve non-technical problems. It was very interesting to realize that 42% of respondents know that digital tool can help to solve these non-technical problems. They know about this. This is the basic level of user. 36% stated that they can use digital technologies and to solve non-technical problems, and this corresponds to the independent user, and only 20% of respondents said that can often choose the right tool, the right device, application, software, or digital instrument to solve non-technical problems that corresponds to the level of a professional user. So I would like to go to the conclusions and recommendations, and I would like to stress that the authors conducted this survey that allowed us to use such a self-assessment tool built on the international approaches, on European approaches, European frameworks, and to apply this to the educators, to the teachers. And in comparison with the survey that we did last year and in this year, the teachers showed the growth of teachers' digital competence. There is a problems that we identified. This is a low motivation, low professional support, many other purposes. And we developed recommendations and presented to the stakeholders at the seminar. In spring this year, we presented to the Ministry of Education and Science, representatives to the Ministry of Education and Science, to the Interdisciplinary teacher training institutions, and we recommend what we recommend? We recommend to introduce such a tool as a part of voluntary instrument to help teachers to identify the needs and gaps into their level of digital competence. And also we recommend to take topics for the in-service teacher training programs and for future training from this questionnaire, and which is based on European topics. We also plan by the beginning of 2021-2022 school year to share our experience, to share our online instrument, which is tested now in Rivne in Service Teacher Training Institute. And we also plan to conduct the next survey next year and to compare the results and to investigate how much the situation has changed in the development of digital competence of teachers. We also can find this analytical report in the electronic library of the National Academy of Pedagogical Sciences of Ukraine. You can see the detailed results. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sana. It is very interesting information in relation to be a framework for digital competence teaching, learning, and development in general. My question for all participants: be active to ask questions. Don't hesitate if to ask or not, because it is very interesting for everybody. But while other participants thinking about question, I hope my question is to you: do you have data, at least informal, regarding the feelings of teachers? You mentioned a lot of information regards formal teacher's view, but if what they feel, if their digital competencies correspond digital abilities and needs of students. You mentioned the low motivation in conclusion. That's why it is very interesting and important to understand feedback from teachers from pupils to teachers.
Thank you, Alexander Yurich. Yes, we had a part of the questionnaire with the open questions when the teachers should express their feelings, their problems, or their plans, etc. So we had such a list of gaps and problems and feelings of teachers. First of all is overwhelming by the digital time in preparing lessons and different school activities in distance format. So teachers took a lot of time for this, and they are not happy from such a situation. The next problem that they identify, that there is a need to check a lot of written works of students that they can do in other time, in non-distance, in real time, in school, but they have to do this at home, and it takes a lot of time. Then a lot of time teachers use for the preparation of the one lesson, for example. They identified that have take 3 times more time for prepare one lesson. So it is the problem over the time. And one of the very important problems that I think that the Ministry of Education should pay attention to this. The programs and curricula and lessons should be adapted to this digital or distance format for students. So especially in primary schools, we had the presentations here about the primary schools and the investigation. So the big program is to adapt digital format to primary school children, and the teachers pay attention on this. And the feeling to spend a lot of time on the computer, with the computer and with the distance speaking and learning. It is also a problem for teachers. It's a psychological maybe problem that they need to be relaxed and need to be maybe optimized. This situation should be maybe mentioned when they have to prepare to the lessons, so they have to have additional time, or maybe to take maybe some organizational corrections in school, so to give teachers more time for the preparation to the lessons. As for children, the teachers stated that they saw that the children are not so attentive when they are on the screen, when the teacher is on the screen and they are on the back and they are on the distance. They also are not so maybe successful in realization of the tasks and the works. So it also needs to. It is also an overwhelming of the lessons and tasks and different activities that they have to do online. So the hybrid formats will be good for resolve some problems of distance education. And I think, I don't know, maybe some other issues are you interested in? I can also answer.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation. And if you don't mind, I'd like to make some comments. First of all, because not we communicated with you more often than in comparison with other participants of our workshop. But what I'd like to say that I completely, absolutely agree with you that digital competencies are crucial from point of view of future work for everybody, especially for young people. Because today we have more and more integrated human and technical social system general for our life and activity. And that's why I'd like to mention for discussion, maybe not just now, that according to papers, conference presentations over the last year, more and more often it is the term hybrid workforce appeared more and more often. What does it mean? That human should communicate with technical means. Internet of Things, general computer networks, and so on, etc., etc. That's why it is very, very important for future generation. And from this point of view, I'm so curious, what is possible to do for teachers to increase their motivation? Maybe not only from point of view of technical abilities, of course. Without them, it is impossible to increase teachers' competencies. But maybe they need social psychological support. Oksana, what do you mean? Is it possible?
I agree with you, Alexander, that they need social psychological support. Yes, of course, for sure. And this is a great idea to ask them about these hybrid forms that can improve the situation with the low motivation, with the low lack of access, lack of internet access. So not only organizational, but as you stated, social psychological problems, because we have now a big period of distance learning in our school. Our teachers was not prepared to this. We are not prepared to this. We didn't have such a intense courses or quick courses for them. So teachers should start their work now, right now, and right here in distance format. And this was a stress for them. And hybrid format may be a good decision, good resolution for this stress, because they cannot go to the distance format ad hoc. It is very difficult for teachers. And yes, I think that we need to do researches what they feel, and to find solutions for them, and to work with psychologists, sociologists to find solutions, not only for sure with students and for teachers, especially for teachers, because this is a key players in the sector of education.
Thank you very much, Oksana. Once again, it is interesting and very important for teachers, for everybody of us, because our children and grandchildren go to school and they need such competencies, but teachers have to have such abilities, of course. Thank you very much. We can, because we don't have another questions. No, so we can go further. And as I see, our co-chair Vyacheslava Sachi arrived here. So, hi, Vyacheslav. And the next presentation it is our last presentation in this session. Will made by Oksana, author Melnik, Oksana Melnik, Zhenchenko, both, and as I see everybody present here. Okay, you have floor. The title of the presentation is Peculiarities of the Use of Electronic Educational Resources by Ukrainian Teachers During Distance Learning Due to the COVID-19 Pandemic. Please, you can start.
Dear participants and organizers, first of all, I'm grateful to the organizers for their incredible importance and hard work preparing such event, and for the opportunity being here and taking part in it. It's a great honor and pleasure to present the results of our study on the topic Experience of Use of Electronic Educational Resources by Ukrainian Teachers During the Distance Learning Due to the COVID-19 Pandemic, March-May 2020. It was conducted by Marina Zhenchenko, Oksana Melnik, Yaroslava Prihoda, and Igor Zhenchenko. At the beginning, I would like to familiarize you with some abbreviations I'm going to use during my speech. EER means an electronic educational resource. MESU means the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine. IECM, the Institute of Educational Content Modernization. E-textbook means an electronic textbook. E-manual means an electronic manual. The main objectives of our study were connected with EERs as a crucial part of distance learning. We analyzed the use of EERs by Ukrainian teachers and the impact of the introduction of the distance learning on this process. Identified the types of EERs by functional purpose used by teachers during the distance learning most often. Investigated the level of providing teachers with EERs that have passed the state examination and were approved or recommended for use in the educational process in all schools of Ukraine, and identified which types of EERs teachers have developed independently to ensure the qualitative distance learning. The study was realized in several stages. In the first stage, the scientific literature on the topic was analyzed and the questionnaire for teachers was developed. In the second one, the online survey of Ukrainian teachers was conducted to find out their opinions on the specifics of the use of EERs to organize the effective distance learning during the quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The third stage involved the collection of data on EERs developed for Ukrainian school children, which passed the state examination. In the last one, the collected empirical data were generalized and systematized with the help of general scientific methods of analysis, synthesis, generalization, comparison, etc. 576 teachers from 22 regions of Ukraine and Kiev took part in our online survey. 73% of them were from cities, 17.7% from villages, and 9.3% from towns. The results of our online survey showed that the number of teachers who use EERs in the educational process is gradually increasing. 38% of them systematically used EERs last 5 years, 18.2% last 2-3 years, and 2.7% last year. 28.6% of respondents used EERs occasionally as needed, 12% only after the introduction of the quarantine, and only 0.5% didn't use EERs because they didn't have the appropriate skills to work with them. The teachers answered to the question, what types of EERs by functional purpose do you use in your professional activities during the distance learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic most often, are represented on this slide. As you can see, the most popular among teachers were educational and demonstration EERs, such as electronic visual aids, presentations, video lessons, etc. They were chosen by 85.4% of the teachers. Control EERs were in the second place. These EERs were followed by educational and game EERs, educational and practical, reference, educational and methodical, and supporting EERs were on the last place. The total number of answers exceed 100%, as teachers could choose several answers at once. To the question, which EERs do you use most often in your professional work during the distance learning? Only 29.3% of the surveyed teachers choose the answer, those which have passed the state examination of NESU. 46.9% of teachers used EERs developed by other teachers and posted on the internet. 20.8% EERs developed on their own. 3% of the respondents stated that they used all of the mentioned EERs. The obtained results showed the low level of use of EERs which passed the state examination and caused necessity of the study of the level of teachers provision with qualitative EERs approved or recommended by MESU for use in the educational process in all schools of Ukraine. In order to determine the number and types of EERs that have passed the state examination, the materials of the electronic register of educational literature and equipment approved or recommended by MESU posted on the official website of IECM and the minutes of the Commission on Informatization of Educational Institutions for 2016-2019 were analyzed. The analysis showed that in 2016-2019, the developers submitted for examination only 137 EERs for educational purposes, among which a little less than a half, 64 EERs, were approved or recommended for use in the educational process. As you can see from the slide, mainly educational EERs, e-textbooks, and e-manuals were submitted for the state examination. To identify the gaps in providing Ukrainian students with recommended and approved EERs, 23 e-textbooks and 21 e-manuals recommended and approved by MESU in 2016-2019 were analyzed. Among the 23 e-textbooks received recommended for use in the educational process, 74% are e-textbooks for primary school, the first and second grades, and only 26% for middle school, the fifth and sixth grades. The e-manuals passed the examination of the commissions also cover only certain subjects, mainly primary and middle schools. In particular, they have been developed for the first grade in music and mathematics, for the second grade in the course I and Ukraine, for the fifth grade in computer science, for the sixth grade in Ukrainian and history of the ancient world, for the eighth grade in Ukrainian literature. To the question, do you develop your own EERs? If yes, which ones? You can choose several options. 86.5% of the interviewed teachers stated that they developed presentations. 77.6% electronic tests, 61.5% interactive exercises, 38.5% video lessons, and 28.6% electronic crosswords and puzzles. The teachers also actively used EERs developed by other teachers, published on the YouTube channel or on specialized platforms. 76% of them used video lessons on the YouTube. 71.9% EERs posted on the educational platform NowRock. 3.5% EERs posted on the educational platform Svita. So, according to the results, the lack of certified educational and demonstration control EERs is compensated with EERs developed by other teachers, posted on the YouTube channel or on the platforms NowRock, Svita, and also self-developed EERs. To solve the problems identified during the study of providing teachers with qualitative EERs, we propose some ways such as development at the expense of the state of high-quality e-textbooks for various grades and subjects in accordance with the gaps identified in the study in providing students with educational EERs which have passed the state examination. Creation a state register for open EERs self-developed by teachers. And last but not least is development of a national platform of e-learning resources which would include e-textbooks and e-manuals that have passed the state examination and demonstration, game, control, and other types of EERs independently developed by teachers, which meet the quality criteria for content and technical implementation. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to our plans. The next stage of the study on the use of EERs during the second nationwide lockdown is a part of our plans for further research. The development of evaluation criteria for e-textbooks and e-manuals is in our plans too. And at the end, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And really, it is very interesting actual problem to have enough and correct, useful e-textbook, e-manuals, etc., etc. Just for this moment, we have 3 questions. Anybody, any author can answer, and anybody can participate in discussion. The first question is, did teachers use online lessons posted on the All Ukrainian School online platform during the distant learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Good day, everybody. Thank you very much for the question. It's really interesting, and really we asked the teachers if they used the YouTube channel of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine with recordings of online lessons. And it was clarified that 35.9, about 36% of the teachers used them. And the platform of the All Ukrainian School online platform, which includes these lessons, appeared a bit later. That's why the question was not about this platform. The question was about only the online lessons, recording, and maybe the channel, mostly about the YouTube channel of the Ministry of Education and Science, not about this platform, but we analyzed this and we understood that it is the same because a bit later they were appeared on this platform. That's why they used them. Not all of the teachers, but I hope next maybe if we have the second, no, we had it in last year during the second lockdown. They used this channel, this platform more often because it was only the first part.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is connected with this one. Have you investigated which e-learning platform with collection of e-learning resources were used by teachers in this period that you described?
Thanks again. And of course, it was a part of our research because we have a lot of Ukrainian, not only foreign Ukrainian e-learning platforms with collection of electronic educational resources. That's why it was interesting to know, and we asked teachers about using Ukrainian e-learning platforms for school during the first pandemic lockdown, and it was the subject of our study. But the result of this subject, we hope, are to be published in the article currently. It is under consideration in one journal, and now we hope that these results will be published at the beginning of the next year. And during our research, we proposed 27 evaluation criteria for e-learning platforms. They were grouped into 3 macro groups. First one, learning management. Second, learning content management. And the third one, communication and collaboration tools. And we analyzed, according to these criteria, 8 e-learning platforms, Ukrainian e-learning platforms, which were maybe investigated and examined by the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, and which were approved for the use in the educational process.
Thank you very much. And the next natural question is, are you planning to study the use of electronic educational resources during the second lockdown in January 2021? Because, and maybe in future, because just for now, it is the next lockdown, the third lockdown is postponed for now.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, we have such a plan, and we are going to continue our study because and conduct a similar research, but maybe with more respondents and to find out the dynamic of the use of electronic educational resources during the second lockdown in January 2021. And of course, we would like to compare this data with the previous ones, to know the dynamic, to know the problems, maybe to know some positive things, yeah, and to help teachers maybe with some with some problems. That's why it's interesting to know the dynamic and to conduct such a research. And we are planning to do this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wish somebody else to ask? Okay, Oksana Ovcharuk.
Dear colleagues,
Please.
dear Oksana, my question is to you. It's not a question, it's a proposal. You can also compare your results with the results that we did in our department, because there are a lot of cross-cutting issues, not cross-cutting, but similar issues that we investigate together, especially in using platforms and other aspects. You can also compare with us, because we also compare with all investigations that were did in Ukraine this year. In our and we have an analytical report. We show this. You can also see this report, and I propose you to compare with our study, and you will compare with us, with our study.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Oksana. Yes, we read the research that you have done, but I think it's very interesting for us. And I have this idea, but I don't know if I can do this. If you think that it's possible, of course, it will be interesting to compare the results, your results and our results, and to know the dynamic. Maybe we would like to. We can do this together.
We can discuss this.
Of course, we can discuss and cooperate on this topic. Yeah. I think it's interesting to compare.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Let's be in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for your discussion, Oksana and Oksana. Anybody else ask or to participate in our discussion, or will postpone our general discussion to the end of the workshop?